Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. John, welcome back to the show.
Jim, pleasure to be back on the show.
Namibia critical metals jumped today. What's that all about?
Well, Jim, at first I thought maybe somebody has put out a recommendation on the company, as has happened in the past. But the move didn't really happen until at least a half hour into the market. So it's unlikely that somebody put out a recommendation saying, this is a great company, it's got rare earth stuff, it's got gold stuff, it's going a lot higher. I think what happened is that it is part of what we might call a relief rally that the Biden inauguration actually took place without any incident, and that we are now looking at a completely new reality, which is beneficial for Namibia critical metals in two ways. First of all, the Biden administration, now controlling all three branches of government, is in a position to engage in fiscal stimulus to rebuild America, to do infrastructure renewal, and of course that will crank up the debt. And that is good for gold. So gold had a good day today, and a lot of the gold companies did move. But the Biden administration is also embracing the climate change mitigation strategy, the whole clean energy story, and saying we are going to support making sure that we do not have runaway temperatures, in 2050. So we're going to try and meet these carbon dioxide reduction goals. And that twins well with what's already happening with or without the government, which is the electric vehicle rollout happening in a big way. So companies such as Namibia Critical Metals, it benefits from two main things. One is the enthusiasm for gold going higher and its exploration efforts in Namibia. And the other is that, yes, electric vehicles are going to become a reality. And in the background is the reality that the new great power game between China and the United States is not going to go away overnight. And what the Loftal project of Namibia Critical Metals is all about is heavy rare earths. And there are no heavy rare earth mines outside of China, and China's heavy rare earths all come from these ion adsorption clay deposits, whose abundance is finite and has historically been very wastefully produced. So China itself, as it builds out its own electric vehicle fleet, is eventually going to run into heavy rare earth supply problems also. And the heavy rare earths, terbium and dysprosium, they are not the key magnet metals, rare earths, which are neodymium and praseodymium, which are in the light rare earth deposits. They are terbium and dysprosium. They're used as a doping agent in these magnets to keep them from losing their magnetism in high operating temperature. And these metals went to the moon in 2010-11 during the Chinese supply squeeze, and a lot of thrifting R&D was done to reduce the amount of terbium and dysprosium needed to keep these magnets from losing their magnetism. So, but with China's own limitations as to how much they can produce and the ongoing geopolitical conflict between the United States and China, there is now interest in these heavy rare earths being developed outside of China. And early last year, Namibia Critical Metals did a deal with JOGMEC, which is a government agency in Japan, and it's going to earn a majority interest in the Loftal project. And this is a good exit strategy for Namibia Critical Metals down the road because Japan has in-house heavy rare earth separation capacity. So they can take this all the way from a mine capex, mine funding, cracking, and into separating the various heavy rare earths into the individual oxides needed by the magnet industry. So that's unfolding. Last year they They spent a lot of money to confirm that the area for resource is at least double the size that was in the PEA a few years ago. And they also did drilling on a new satellite target, 2B, and they've got similar grades, but the dike veins are skinnier, so probably not as big. But JOGMEC is happy that, yes, there is a long-term resource here. We've got double what we started out with, and the next stage will be a lot more metallurgical work. But the market isn't really buying Namibia critical metals for that. One of the other projects that they have is the Orongo, which is more in the southern part of Namibia, and the Grootfontein. And the Grootfontein is a project that they acquired originally for a mafic intrusive body that runs about 60 kilometers and has potential for magmatic nickel, copper, platinum group metal deposits. But it straddles a multi-hundred kilometer regional fault that they call the Grootfontein shear structure in that area, and the 1 million ounces that they are open pit mining. And the host in this area has always been these Damara sediments with the structurally controlled systems coming up. The Damara rocks are only present in a small sliver in the southern part of the Grootfontein project, but NMI's geological genius, Rainer Elmies, he has always felt that it's the structures that are carrying the gold. It doesn't matter what they're going through. The gold will drop out anywhere along the way. So they initiated a soil sampling program this year, mainly tracking the northern fault structure. There's another parallel one that cuts through the southern part of the project, which they actually think is more prospective. But with limited funds last year, they focused on the northern one. And when we last talked about Namibia critical metals, it was December 10th. They had not yet received any results. Since then, they had received all the soil sample results, and they have several significant gold and soil anomalies. One is the highland in the sort of northwestern part of the property, and then there's another one in the northeastern part called Roodhof, and they haven't even touched yet the southern part with where the Watersburg fault occurs. But they now realize, wow, these structures here, even though there's not the same rocks that host Chikoto, these same structures were conduits for gold mineralization, and what was originally just more of a base metal platinum group target has now turned into a gold play. And they are now shaking the bushes, hoping to raise $3 million so that they can go in there with a very focused gold exploration play. They also have the Orongo project, which is closer to Osino's project farther south, but they did not have enough money to do a full sampling program there. So for now, the Grootfontein play is their primary gold focus, and the market today was basically waking up, various different buyers suddenly kicking in, and the timing, I think, is linked to the belief that, okay, now that there's a new government in the United States, this is going to be good for metals in probably all categories.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, Yorbo Resources left us hanging at the end of 2020 when Quebec temporarily shut down everything in response to the COVID surge. Where does the Lemoyne drilling stand today?
Well, Jim, we've been talking about Yorbo's Lemoyne play since late October when they decided to drill a downhole geophysical conductor that had been identified a long time ago. They've done more work to dress it up. It exists at about 1,200 meter depth. The Lemoyne deposit itself was about 3/4 million tons of high-grade copper, zinc, and gold, which was mined out decades ago. And the whole area there has been Swiss cheesed with holes looking for more of this. But at this depth, there was like this window of untested rock within that stratigraphy which hosts the VMS Lemoyne deposit. And they started a drill program, and they hit the target depth, but boom, where the anomaly was supposed to be, the conductor, they went straight into a gabbroic dike which cuts through the area. It's a later stage event post-mineral. And they said, oh, what's going on here? They did a downhole geophysical probe, and it said, oh, you just missed it. It's a little bit farther to the east. So they set up a wedge hole and, go back up into the mother hole and then our pilot hole and then drill a shallower wedge hole. And they reached the target depth in that week before Christmas, and much to their dismay, they did not get anything which explained the conductor, and that'll either be graphite, which is not really expected in this area, or it's going to be metallic sulfides that are mass of 40-50% or more. And the one sort of caveat is, well, it could just be pyrrhotite, which is just iron sulfides, which is not interesting at all, or it can be a polymetallic sulfide, which has iron sulfides, copper sulfides, zinc sulfides, lead sulfides, the whole works of what you are looking for in a VMS deposit. And in the case of Lemoyne itself, there is a significant gold, silver enrichment, which makes it the second richest deposit in the world after SK Creek's 21B zone. But all they got was a meter or so of disseminated sulfides. The copper and zinc sulfides were present, and then it went bang right away into the gabbroic dike. And so they said, well, I guess we need to do another downhole geophysical probe. And so they got the crew in there, they lowered the probe down there, and it got stuck. And before they could get it unstuck, they got chased off the property when Quebec shut everything down due to the COVID surge that was happening, and basically said nobody's going anywhere until January 11th. So that's where things were left at the end of last year when we last talked about it, and they were going to go back in there and try and fish out the probe, and if they couldn't get it out, they would put the drill back in the hole and grind the hell out of it so that it wouldn't be in the way blocking anything, and then lower $10,000 piece of garbage created. But luckily, when the crew got back in there on the 12th, they were able to fish it out intact. They lowered it down. They took new readings. They got 2 different geophysical groups to do interpretations. Both of them said, you're in the middle of the anomaly, and its center is about 50 meters east and 50 meters up. And so that was a bit of a head scratcher because what they intersected really didn't explain anything. And after reviewing all that, they said, well, we have to do another wedge hole. And that wedge hole began last Friday night. It's expected to be at target depth in the middle of next week. And this is a do or die hole, because if there's still nothing there, then there is something seriously wrong with the Lemoyne drill play. And just to give an example of how it is possible that they could have this hole be in the conductor but still have nothing to explain it, imagine one of those chocolate bars that have hazelnuts in it. And it's wrapped, so you can't really see where chocolate and hazelnuts are. And you take a pin, a needle of some sort, and spear it in there, and all you get is a hazelnut. And since you're not really interested in eating a granola bar, but want a chocolate bar, you think, well, this is no good. But in fact, Mother Nature, when you get down to the small scale of a deposit, where you have a 3-inch wide drill core coming in from 1,200 meters away, it could very easily hit a xenolith, like a hazelnut in the chocolate bar. That is not at all what you're looking for. So they'll find out eventually what's going on, but they feel that the massive sulfides the conductor can only be explained by massive sulfides. And the key thing will be how much gold is in this lens, if it is indeed present. So that again will take 6 to 8 weeks. So by next week we'll know whether there is a VMS lens present here, and then it'll take another 2 months to find out if it has the gold enrichment. That makes this a really interesting discovery.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Value from success. Growth in discovery. Golden Arrow Resources is a well-funded gold-copper exploration company with proven management and prospective properties in Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. Golden Arrow trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol GRG, on Frankfurt, symbol G6A, and the OTCQB, symbol GARWF. For more information, visit us at goldenarrowresources.com or call Sean at 778-686-0135.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, have any new discoveries caught your attention?
During my bottom fish hunting in December, I came across a little junior called Bolt Ventures, which had undertaken a 5-for-1 rollback earlier 2020, done some small financings, but was still bumbling around between 5 and 10 cents. And I did some homework on it and discovered that this Traxon project that they had got part of 3 or 4 years ago, but then got the entire part optioned in 2020, is a very interesting exploration play. Now, Bold Ventures is a company that's been around for a long time, and it used to be run by Gary Zak, but in 2010, Richies, they had discovered the Windfall deposit in Quebec, where Osisko Mining has spent hundreds of millions of dollars outlining a 5.8 million ounce deposit, and is continuing to spend money to demonstrate that this is worth mining. But in October 2007, Noront was drilling geophysical targets in the Ring of Fire area, which had originally emerged through diamond exploration, juniors chasing these mag anomalies, hoping that they would be kimberlites. And it turned out that this was a setting with VMS deposits and unusually, in a very unusual sense, chromite deposits, of which Free West had found one called the Black Thor a year or so earlier. And nobody knew what to do with chromite. We all knew it came mainly from South Africa, which dominated the market. So nobody paid much attention. But in October 2007, Noront intersected high-grade nickel, copper, PGM mineralization in a magmatic setting, and the market thought it was the tentacle of another Voisey's Bay type ovoid. But further drilling eventually showed that no, it was not, it was just a tentacle. But this was the last great explosion of a great Canadian area play. These stocks all charged way up. Tens of millions of dollars came in from all corners. But when it proved to be not as big as everybody expected, all the prices sagged, and then along came the financial crisis. And then one of the fund managers, Warren Irwin, who'd got stuck in Noront, ended up orchestrating a proxy battle, and Richard Nemes and his team were kicked out in late 2008. and a group of Bay Street custodians was put in charge of Noront, which has ever since then been a market dog. Not necessarily its own fault, because what happened was Cliffs, which as part of its integrated North American steel supply strategy, had acquired Free West and wanted to develop the chromite deposits, but then they ran into First Nations problems, and then Cliffs itself, when iron ore prices collapsed several years later, encountered its own grumpy hedge fund manager, and the management was kicked out of that, and all these assets were dispersed, and Noront now owns the bulk of these assets over there, but it is still struggling to try and get respect because the First Nations situation in that region has been very, very difficult to resolve in a win-win manner. But Richard Nemes ended up joining Bold in 2010 with exploration in other parts of Ontario and Quebec. And one of the properties that they staked was called the Traxon Extension. It's in the Atikokan district in Western Ontario. This district straddles the Quetico Fault, which runs for 50-60 kilometers in an east-west direction. There's no gold in the Quetico Fault itself, but the splays off it do contain gold mineralization. The biggest deposit is the Hammond Reef deposit, which sits on a splay in the western end of the Quetico Fault to the north, and it has about 208 million tons of 0.67 gram per ton gold. It's a bulk tonnage story. I covered this project when it was owned by Brett Resources from 2006 until 2010, when the original Cisco bought it out at a stock price that was over $500 million worth, just under $5. It was probably one of the last big 10 bangers that I had from that cycle. But in the eastern part, in 2016, there's also a splay like this that runs north for 15 plus kilometer, but it had no history of any gold mineralization associated with it. But a prospector working that area discovered outcrop in 2016, staked the Traxon claims, and ended up optioning them to Benton Resources, so the company run by the Stairs brothers. But the structure continued based on, the government mag data, continued another 5-6 kilometers to the north under a lake, and the prospector didn't want to stake that, but the Bold team, which understood the geology of the region, they promptly staked the lake and called it the Traxon Extension. Never did anything with it because of the bear market, but Benton did drill about 18 holes. It outlined a 300-meter segment of sheared quartz system that runs up to 30 meters wide. There's gold in almost every hole. It does spike up to over 30 grams per ton when there is visible gold present. But they only drilled it to generally 100-meter depth. One hole got down to 145 meter, and it did appear that grade was improving at depth, though that remains to be demonstrated. But in 2020, Benton Resources dropped the option because it was focused on another project, and the Bold Ventures group promptly staked the property. Now, in March 2019, Richard Nemes passed away, and the torch was handed to David Graham, who has since then been the CEO. And as part of getting this company alive again, they did that 5-for-1 rollback in early 2020. But as soon as this option lapsed, they went and did a deal with the prospector on reasonably good terms to acquire 100%. But what really interests me, and is a main reason that I'm featuring this as a Discovery Watch story, is that in 2017-16, when they staked the Traxon Extension, they did something very unusual. They invited the Lac des Mille Lac First Nation, in whose territory this project exists, to form a joint venture on the Traxon Extension property, a 50-50 deal. And they have worked with this group to do a regional survey of mineral potential. And when they optioned the Traxon project, they included it with the original joint venture. So the Lac des Mille Lac First Nation group is contributing its share of the upcoming drill program, which started on January 12th. It's a simple 1,000-meter program consisting of 5 holes. Its purpose is to drill deeper, up maybe 200-meter depth underneath the existing 300-meter strike of this deposit, to better understand the continuity of the gold mineralization and to see if indeed gold grades do get. And the Lac des Mille Lac First Nation story is very interesting because back in 1873, the area where they were based was flooded by the Ontario government when they created a huge reservoir, and they were simply displaced and they were never compensated. And in 2017, they finally reached a $77 million settlement with the federal and provincial government to settle the claims. So they now have a huge trust fund, and they've decided that they're going to use this to become business people and make themselves self-sufficient in this area. So they're doing all kinds of interesting things, including working with exploration juniors such as Bold Ventures on terms that are win-win. Now, if they don't want to contribute, the dilution deal clause will say, well, if you don't contribute $250,000, you end up with a royalty, and Bold ends up with 100%. But at this point, they're completely on side. They've invested the effort into understanding the mineral potential, and this play, if it turns out to be something significant, a major gold system, will end up being a case study for how mining companies can work with the First Nations in a win-win manner rather than this less productive extortion that we see going on in other parts of Ontario where nothing seems to get done with the First Nations groups and companies trying to explore in their backyard. So this program will wrap up sometime next week, and we'll get the assays in 6 to 8 weeks. They'll go back in there in the summer, but for further drilling. But in the meantime, they'll do IP surveys to assess the southern extent of that 300-meter area that Benton had focused on. And also, while the lake is still frozen to the north, they'll do it to the north. They won't be able to really drill that during the summer, but they want to have that ready for chasing the structure under the lake in January of 2022. So it's starting off as a small play, but it has a very interesting wrinkle to it, and it has the potential to deliver that high-grade gold mineralization that the market really likes these days.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been speaking with John Kaiser, his website, kaiserresearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Discovery Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at howestreet.com. Discovery Watch is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.